I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty, December 5th, 2011. We've been out of town, so we weren't able to do our regular Sunday video. We had meetings all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and we're a tad burned out, but there are some things that we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
And the first one is seeing both sides of the illusion, and the illusion, both sides can be Democrat, Republican, it can be conservative, liberal. Can you name some other flips of?
Well, let me just describe basically
right.
philosophically that this is what is needed. In terms of talking about waking up, everybody seems to think that if you see this thing, whatever it is, 9/11, something or other else, you'll wake up. But that's not really all there is to it, because I know people that really aren't awake in terms of understanding the way the world really works, and they know about 9/11. There's people that understand this aspect, but they're not really awake. They don't see the system. And what I've learned, and the teaching this weekend highlighted to me, and looking back on my past, I can realize what I've been through, is that this is actually a principle that so-called mystery schools or whatever uses, but it's basically it's a God principle, because I can see how God did it in my life. What happens is you need to see, in order to see the big picture, you have to be familiar with at least two ways of seeing reality. And that means that you spend years typically in one view and then in another view, and then you'll get the aha moment, or the aha period of time, or whatever it is, where you see that both of those were an illusion. Now, it could be more than two. I don't see any reason why it has to be limited to two, but it needs to be at least two. And typically, in the political arena, in our American modern society, that's the left and the right. That's the most obvious. So in order to wake up out of that, you have to really count yourself as a member of seeing things from the left and seeing things from the right. And then once you realize, wait a minute, this is not making sense, there's more to it than that, I see truth here, I see truth here, I see on both sides, and then you see that there's a lot of things that don't add up, that aren't really explained by this paradigm of the left-right, and then you can see the whole system. And that's what happens. So like I said, we had some teaching about the way that the system purposely does that to people. They purposely put people here or put people there, and they don't realize they're compartmentalized. One little example is the black and white checkerboard tile that is often in illuminist homes or in high-class homes. This chessboard is the black and white squares. That symbolizes this duality. So you identify with one aspect of the duality, but in order to break out of that, you need to be able to actually have lived in both elements of that duality. And there's a whole bunch of examples. I don't have time to go into that, but I just want to lay out that principle and just emphasize how important it is to see that it's not, left is not correct, right is not correct. It's really being able to see that both of those are an illusion. So
Interesting. And part of my experience with that is being inside of churches for many years and taking all the church realities for granted, and then going through experiencing times where I was not inside of churches and noticing some of the issues there. And I think the beginning is really just a willingness to consider that your approach to life may not be 100% right.
Yeah, this group that you want to align yourself with doesn't have all truth, like you really want it to, like you want to believe in this group. Yeah, they just don't.
We all want to find something simple, easy, basic, that we can just walk into a ready-made paradigm and
all the
live
other guys
there for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, and all the other guys are the bad guys. And then you've got this clear, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys.
Right.
Thing. Yeah.
But it's not, it doesn't exist. So I guess question everything.
Yeah, question everything.
And we wanted to mention that the NDAA, the act that officially makes us a police state, we ourselves were a little confused. We hadn't somehow realized that the House had passed this in May. So the Senate was the second step, not the first step. So it's a done deal.
Yeah.
All that's left is for Obama to sign it, and there's questions about that.
Yeah, and maybe he's posturing maybe he won't sign it, and if he doesn't sign it, it's really because he knows that he doesn't need to have Congress's authority to enact his police state. And if you correctly understand the situation in which he is the president of the corporation, not the true original organic constitution, then that he does have that power. That's why presidents write executive orders, is they are the executors of the bankruptcy that the United States has been under since 1933 or whatever it is, 34, something like that. So Obama knows that, and whether or not that he wants to give people the false sense of security by vetoing it, or whether he wants to clamp down and say, yeah, we are a police state, yeah, I am a dictator. We'll see. That'll be interesting, but that's where we're at.
And check out some of the votes. Go online and look up see how your local reps and senators voted. It was kind of interesting that Don found that in California and New York there were quite a few no votes. So we don't know if that indicates that people are more awake. I'm quite certain that they all made agreements with one another to be sure that it would be covered, that it would pass. But interestingly enough, some states that we thought might be rather conservative on this, Ohio and some other states, the guys all voted yes, including Texas.
Yeah, the brainwashing has been pretty much complete, where people think that it's a good thing to have the military function within your own country. That historically has been the hallmark of American Republican form of democracy, where we know that a police state, it always happens whenever you allow the military to operate within the country. Well, that is gone now. It's the Rubicon has been crossed. That's the meaning of that term, where the military comes back into Rome from crossing the Rubicon River, where they know that if they do that, then they're in a police state, and that's what's happened now. So that means that there really is, we're at the whim of whoever happens to be running the giving commands to the military, or even rogue military operating under their own authority. So I feel relatively good that there was a very high percentage of Californian representatives and senators that actually voted against this thing. So that, I think, helps to create an environment where people are a little bit more suspicious of the militarized police and the military. So, I mean, that's a kind of not really a hopeful sign, but looking at anything from a positive standpoint, I see a little positive token there.
Well, I guess another small positive token is that Herman Cain has dropped out of the presidential race, and it's left with Gingrich, Paul, and the Mormon guy. I'm sorry, I always Romney. It's a mental block. If my subconscious won't allow me to believe it's that. Now, I really don't have anything personally against Mormons. It's just that the Mormonism seems to be kind of like the Masonic. It's these Egyptian mysteries are kind of built right into that religion, as they are into Catholicism.
Yeah, and Catholicism has the national structure. The Mormonism sort of goes underground to the satanic rituals once they get to the higher levels. And how high up Romney is, I don't really know. There's some indication that he's not fully trusted by the elites, and that may be true, but nevertheless, Massachusetts passed the healthcare model that became Obamacare, so I don't think there's any reason for any conservative to trust Romney. If something like that would happen in Massachusetts under his leadership, then I don't see any reason to trust him for being president. But
and we don't trust Newt either, right?
Absolutely not. The man
God help us.
He impresses people with his brain power and his quickness on the debate stump. But if you look at some of his quotes, my gosh, this guy, all you have to do is look at these the vanity and the things that he's said and what he believes about himself. It's megalomano,
Megalomaniacal.
that's the word, yeah. He's certifiably psychopathic, that guy. Oh, man, he's scary. He's really scary. Just the real basic issue about him, if you don't realize it, NAFTA and GATT were made possible by his leadership as Speaker of the House when in Congress in the 1990s. So we know that sold America down the river, caused American companies to leave, and created this. He's globalism from A to Z. He's just to say the guy's conservative is completely just ridiculous. So Ron Paul is now moved into number 2 spot, according to some polls in Iowa. So that's a good sign. I agree with those who say that the Republican leadership would never let Ron Paul get the nomination, but nevertheless, the fact that his grassroots support is really there is going to show up the establishment fraud of election fraud for what it is. So it's really important to have Ron Paul in there for there to be good scientific polls and for people to see the breadth of support that he really has.
That's great. We love Ron Paul. Go Ron Paul.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing about Newt Gingrich. If you happen to be a Christian who's taken in or somewhat taken in by Newt Gingrich's friendship with Lou Engle, I'm not sure. I know he did a conference or a seminar or something with
tried to or something.
One of those big stadium things with Lou Engle. For the most part, we think Lou Engle's a great guy. I mean, we don't know him personally, but it seems like there's positive fruit from his ministry. But man, if he's in some kind of a partnership with Newt Gingrich, these people, these right-wing conservatives, have learned so well how to play the Christian vote. And please, we just want to issue a caution. Look at these guys' records. Don't be swept away by the charisma. Find out who is Newt Gingrich really. Not a caring nurturer.
Yeah.
So our next topic is, you may think that the European banks are being bailed out by the IMF. Not so. They are being bailed out by the United States of America without congressional approval. So you want to talk about how that's working?
Yeah, just real briefly, the American taxpayer really does not realize the extent to which he is subsidizing the forming of the New World Order. The dollar is this strange currency that was designed back at the time of the New Deal, and which is the New Deal is really an enslavement strategy, and it's backed by the sweat and the property of the American taxpayer, and we are funding the building of this global New World Order. Europe is being backed up by the United States dollar. There's really nothing behind the dollar anymore other than the labor, the social security system, that enslaves Americans to work for this dollar, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, the oil also in petrodollars, that's been the foundation for oil. So it's commodity based, but it really is, what I want to say is all this is happening on the backs of the American, and we don't realizing we're not only building our own prison, we're building the world's prison as this bailout by the American dollar in Europe now shows. So yeah, amazing stuff.
Time to withdraw consent, because we share responsibility and silence is taken as consent. So speak up, blog, write, talk to your friends, do whatever you're good at, but let people know and help people wake up so that we can all withdraw our consent together and stop these megalomaniacs.
Yeah, those guys.
And speaking of megalomaniacs, there does seem to continue to be preparations for war in Iran, but you were saying that it is probably not very near unless there are 3 battleships in the air, and there's only one.
Joel Skousen has some good military inside sources, and his sources are saying that when you see 3 aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf, then know that that's the time that the strike and the beginning is going to actually happen. And it looks like the U.S. and Obama is backing off of any plans to do the first strike. It looks like if and when it happens, that it's going to be Israel, and then we'll be in the position of having to back up Israel against all the backlash. So that's what it's going to look like. And I just am personally thinking, from the little bits that I've read, that this is probably going to happen in the latter half of 2012. But, you know, maybe we can avert it. Maybe we can prevent it from happening.
Pray.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a sincere hope that, gosh, no more people will suffer at the hands of the U.S. military.
We don't want a World War III. This is World War III we're talking about here,
yeah,
folks.
And they'll come here. I mean, I think we've talked before about China and Russia are saying that they'll back up Pakistan and Iran. So if you know, I don't see anything that will prevent them from coming to U.S. soil.
Yeah,
and we're always so proud that we haven't had a war on our soil, and so terrified of terrorism. But terrorism is nothing compared to what actually happens when a foreign power invades you.
Yeah, yeah.
Watch some World War II movies about France.
Several months ago, we mentioned George Washington's vision, and that is the third thing that happened in the vision, is that America was invaded by foreign powers, and that's on the horizon. We don't know how quickly that will happen. I tend to think that vision is true. I don't know that, but we can see that the powers that be that are running our country and the globalist forces, they are expecting a backlash, and they're advancing their agenda knowing that it's going to generate a backlash. So you need to be prepared for that, personally as well as just in terms of collectively knowing what we're doing. If we need to stop believing that if we back so-and-so, Israel, whoever, then God will protect us. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it is.
Yeah, because Hitler did a lot of what he did in the name of God too. So, and we're being manipulated by the you know, to a large extent, we're being manipulated by what happened on 9/11 and the threat of terrorism, and then we're being manipulated to fear Muslims and other people who are a perceived threat. And a lot of that threat is not even real. It's based on false flag terror. And Don was just reading about how some of the flight numbers, having the planes that crashed into the Twin Towers on 9/11, there are some things that don't add up there. The flight numbers weren't.
New information from pilots for 9/11 Truth, and Joel Skousen reported this. He's a pilot. He's a member of that group, and one of the things that has been noted is some radar that's on record that shows that the 3 airplanes, the 2 that struck the Twin Towers and then the one that hit the Pentagon, actually turned around, and another airplane appeared to have joined it, and then the first one turned around. So. And the very interesting thing is that the 2 United flights, each airplane has an FAA registration number, and the 2 registration numbers that were associated with the United airplanes actually were kept in use, kept being used. They never went out of use. Those registration numbers for the 2 United airplanes after 9/11, up until something like 2005, is 2004, 2005, I forget which, when people started wondering about that and looking into that, then they dropped off the radar when people started asking questions. But that's known as the airline swap theory, so there's new credence for that. Another piece of evidence that's never been explained otherwise is the fact that you can see this on one of the planes that struck the World Trade Center. There's this bulge on the underside, and it's something that the pilot obviously would have seen as being abnormal on his plane before he took off. It's some feature, something is underneath the belly of one of those planes, and there's a documentary called In Plain Sight that highlights that feature. So that also ties in with the airline swap theory. So new information that exposes the illusion that is 9/11 that's been used to build this modern police state.
And the whole point of what Don was discussing at the beginning about the two realities and having them merge, it's just basically the idea is that not everything that you are fed. I don't even want to say not everything that you see, because this really is more referring to specific things that are directed to you, like television, even some YouTube videos, documentaries, whatever. That a lot of movies that have esoteric meanings, that you are spoon-fed a version of reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Matrix in a strict sense of being jacked into something. You are volunteering to be jacked in.
Whenever you are assuming that one of the two predominant views or multiple views is reality, whenever you create anything, you create it out of the reality that you live in. So the propaganda is self-generating.
Yeah, so I guess our main thoughts this week are: look at things. Don't look through your rose-colored glasses. Take your glasses off. Be willing to look at reality. It might feel scary at first, but ultimately, well, you're really not in any more danger. You just are aware that you are in danger.
It's so easy to do, but it's easily said, but actually hard to do in reality. But it's the old idea of the Indian saying, walk a mile in the other guy's moccasins before you judge him. It's that this dualistic worldview is very judgmental, and in order to break out of that, you have to be able to do that. You have to say, okay, if you're a conservative, let me see life the way a liberal sees it. And then you see all the evil of the corporations. Then you see all of the injustice that has to do with money and power. And you see all that, and you realize, wow, why did I give that sanction if you were a conservative? And then vice versa. If you're a liberal and you don't understand the conservatives and you think that they're all hateful right-wingers, and then you actually make friendships with people, you find out they just want their individual liberties. And so once we can actually see with other people's eyes, all of this garbage goes away.
So open your eyes. Be free.
Yeah. Pass on the love.